class. Welcome to the Invisible Teacher. I'm not invisible anymore, but I've chosen to keep my voice the same, hopefully. Um, I am embarrassed about the sound of my own voice. I don't think it sounds very nice. So welcome, and right, I was talking about Nikolai Gogol and the Diary of a Madman. I said that I'd ordered the Diary of a Nobody, and indeed, the Diary of a Nobody, or a Diary of a Nobody, did arrive. Now, it arrived, I thought I was buying it from a bookshop online, but it arrived from an industrial estate in Carmarthenshire, which is of interest. Um, now, the thing is, in the A Diary of a Nobody, um, there is two balls. We were talking about the Cinderella story and the how in the Diary of a Madman there is a ball anticipated. Well, there are two balls in A Diary of a Nobody or the Diary of a Nobody. Let's just check that. The Diary of a Nobody. There are two balls, and in the first, where the Lord Mayor is present, indeed, a shoe or a boot is somehow tripped over or lost or faulty, and it means that the nobody character collapses on the floor and seems to make a fool of himself when he'd longed to go to the ball. And there's lots of talk about fashion again. The second ball, he really tries to kit himself out completely for it. There was contemporaneous with the French Revolution. It's hard to believe that this isn't a story set in the suburbs as such from modern times. It is set in the middle of London, but it's a suburban feel to the story, and a lot like situation comedies on television in the 50s and 60s and 70s. It's about a man who has a wife and how their marriage sort of is managed to be maintained. He feels claustrophobic with her sometimes. I think she feels claustrophobic with him. At the French Revolution, I was saying, there is a point in which he paints the bath red, and rather like the Marat figure who committed suicide in the bath. But I hope that he didn't commit suicide. Now, in the introduction to the volume that I have, the very book, is Wordsworth Classics, cover design Robert Matthias. It's with an introduction and notes by Michael Irwin, Professor of English Literature, University of Kent at Canterbury. Now, it is important that if we are talking about the same edition. I did some further learning at the University of York. I've got a degree from there. I've got an MA from York St John's University, but I found the continuing learning really interesting at the University of York. And one of the projects was a creative writing project where there was a woman talking about the Steiner School and how she believed in Steiner education and would try and put that into her writing. And but the tutor, the young tutor, was most insistent that we use the very edition he was using of George Orwell's 1984, and we had to buy the same one with the same introduction. It had to be identical. Now, I was most disturbed by it actually because I seem to remember 1984 being a lot longer, a lot bigger volume when I first read it. but this one was a Gothic type one, and I didn't quite know what had happened. It may be that some others of you have the same memories of the what I thought was the edition that we read a long time ago when I would have been in my teens, and whether it is indeed different from the Gothic type one, which seems much shorter, or whether it's been altered somehow. To return to the Diary of a Nobody, oh dear, there's a bit of a sound outside. Please forgive that. To begin with the Diary of a Nobody, um, I'm losing track of what I'm saying now. Yes, it's Bridget Jones's diary, and many modern diaries of supposedly insignificant people are based on it. But to continue about the Marat thing and whether he committed suicide, in the introduction it says that this volume, the Diary of a Nobody, didn't appear as a volume straight away. It was taken from episodes in Punch magazine, and it was a serialized story, and that there were many episodes. Well, there were weeks without episodes. So whether it was that the author was ill, or whether it was that Punch had trouble paying him, or whether indeed I hope he didn't commit suicide and that it isn't an imposter that finished the story. Right, the other book I got, I thought was going to be sent from a Cotswold bookshop, but it was actually sent from a mushroom farm, it said on the address, on an industrial estate. But it arrived in pristine condition. Here it is. It has the knocker up on the front really reminds us of Marley's knocker in A Christmas Carol. Here's the back. Now, I have begun reading it, but I was worried it would end up being a bit of a horror story. Charles Dickens apparently wrote more Christmas stories than just A Christmas Carol. And I did start reading one of the other ones, and it was about tripe. Not a chicken, but tripe. And I will continue maybe to tell you a bit more about that, but I did stop reading it because I was a bit suspicious of the tripe itself. It may have been an imperial thing that Charles Dickens was writing about, as well as a local London thing. And I don't know whether the agricultural revolution had taken off to such an extent that many crops were able to be grown in those days. It may have been that people really were much more dependent on meat for any sustenance than we are today. I was a bit afraid when I started reading it. It's called The Church Bells. It's about this chap who's in charge of a porter and listens to church bells. His station is at a church, and he's got a daughter who brings him this tripe to eat, and he eats it without thinking and just starts tucking into it. And I was rather worried that he was an aborted child or a stillborn child or something like that. So I don't carry on with it. I will hopefully that nightmare will dissipate and go away, and I will be able to continue with it and reassure you that that's not the case. But it is this volume is actually when I don't know how much I am imagining that certainly the story was very much written in the style of Dickens, and I'm hoping to an extent, if it's not a nightmare, that there might be alternative Christmas stories by Dickens. and some of them might be useful for modern times. I'm hoping it's not, they're not going to turn out to be horror stories. Um, and it may indeed not be written by Charles Dickens completely, or not as Dickens wrote them, because you will see here is edited with an introduction and notes by Robert Douglas Fairhurst, Oxford University Press, edited. Does that mean that he's edited the stories? We don't, it's not completely clear. It's Oxford University Press. He's apparently someone to do with Magdalen College in Oxford. And this volume was published in, first published 2006, reprinted 2018, impression 1. Yes, the story that I started reading and had fears for was called The Chimes. I may tell you more about it another time. I'm going to leave it there for now, class. Goodbye for now. I'm hoping we can continue our discussion of Swinburne as well some other time.